Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A. Well, this is Professor Michael Scott speaking from a whole new Facebook page this week. This is new Facebook, facebook.com/Prof Michael Scott. Now, as some of you may know, I have very sadly had the Facebook page that we all know and loved over the last year or two been hacked. It's been hacked over the last couple of weeks. And as a result, we've tried to get it back. We've done our best to get it back if we possibly could. But it has sadly been taken now completely away from us and lost into the ether. And so while we will try to continue to wrestle with the joys of Facebook to get it back, we have started afresh. And my huge thanks to Claire for helping get this page up and running, which is now at facebook.com/Prof Michael Scott. So the most important thing you can help us with is, of course, by continuing to tune in and contribute to the page and with your fantastic questions, comments, photos, and other contributions in lots of different ways. But equally spread the message, because we have lost our 7,000 plus followers and we can't get to them in any single way apart from via other social media, Twitter, Instagram, and most importantly through you guys. Hello Hegleys, how are you doing? Thank you everyone for tuning in, finding us. Thank you Anna. It's great to see you all. Please spread the word. Any of our previous followers who joined in the Q&As that you know of, who you might be friends with Facebook, or you might be able to put out messages on your own social media, please help us reach all those people that were enjoying the Q&As and were part of our Facebook community, because we want to have you all back and to be one big happy family again. So yes, Professor, so it's facebook.com/Prof Michael Scott is the new Facebook public page. And we have taken stringent now security measures to helpfully ensure that we don't get hacked again. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for coming back and staying with us. Hello all. Hi Claire, thanks so much indeed for tuning in. Thank you again to Claire for all your work this week, getting it back up and running. And most importantly, thank you to you for coming back to find us. Help us spread the word. The second thing I want to do in this Q&A, before we offer some spooky Halloween themed questions, is of course to launch the now kind of fast becoming a tradition of a Christmas gift that I can offer. Now, it might seem a bit odd to start a Halloween special Q&A with talking about Christmas, but I couldn't resist it, as I'm really pleased to be able to announce that we are launching the Christmas calendar again for this year. So I've been having great fun picking photos that I've taken in different places around the world over the past year. All the photos in this year's calendar come from 2020. No, definitely not 2020. 2019. They come from this year to hopefully see you through the next year, 2020. And we have done the calendar. I can show it to you now. Here it is, kind of in all of its glory. We've kept our traditional black, different photo of me on the front, not taken, I have to say, in 2019. But every photo from there on we have is a 2019 photo. So I can give you a glimpse of January. There you go. You're getting an exclusive peek at January, which is a beautiful sun-dappled photo of the Acropolis in Athens. And kind of as it goes through. So this calendar is now available as before on Amazon, amazon.co.uk. And if you search for Prof Michael Scott Calendar 2020, then you will find it there, and you can order it online for delivery to UK, Europe and the US. If you are in Australia and you want to get hold of the calendar, then do email the michaelscottacademic@gmail.com email address, and you can then set up an order and pay through PayPal. And all the instructions are there also on my blog, on my website, michaelscottweb.com. And I know Claire has put up a post about the calendar on Facebook as well, so you've got all the information. And Natalie and Christmassy, it comes this year in a Christmas red envelope. What more Christmassy gift can you possibly hope to imagine? And of course, I'm very happy to sign the calendar and put in any dedication that you might want. So please, when you're ordering on Amazon, just especially there's an area where you can say if you'd like a gift message with a gift message. So just say exactly what you'd like there, or over email, obviously just specify what you like. I'm very happy to get that out to you for Christmas. Last posting dates are also there on the website blog and also on the Facebook page. So get the Michael Scott 2020 calendar in, and there is a surprise for you all in December. a guest photographer has come in to offer a photo for December, and many, many thanks to them. But you'll have to grab the calendar to find out what the surprise is. So there we go. Thank you, everyone. Please, please, please. Hope you'll enjoy that calendar. It was a great success last year, with many of you enjoying the photos, and hopefully it brings a bit of joy and kind of smile to your face with the photos that I absolutely love, of places I've either worked or travelled to, or actually this year some that are just really close to home that I absolutely love spending time in. And so kind of I hope they bring you joy in what is going to be obviously a turbulent end to this year, and probably a nice turbulent start to 2020 as well. So there we go, we've got the calendar, and you know about the new Facebook page, and we're going to spread the word about the Facebook page and get the message out there. Facebook.com/Prof Michael Scott. Well, it is Halloween. It is time for some spooky stories, and some of you have been sending in your questions. We've managed to grab some of your questions that came in before our Facebook page got rudely taken away from us by the ether ghosts of the internet. And we've had a couple of extra ones coming in more recently as well. Now, Latifa, you've asked for my favourite spooky story. And Richard Jones, you said, I've spent many hours in various ancient and historic places. Have you or any of your crew experienced something spooky or eerie that you couldn't explain? Well, I'm going to tell you my stories, but I'd equally like to hear yours. Have you had any spooky or eerie or Halloween-esque stories where you felt the hand from another world, or perhaps the underworld, resting on your shoulder, or perhaps grabbing your leg coming up from the underworld? So let us know what your stories are, and particular places in the world where you have felt like something else might be going on. So for me, in terms of places, two particular places stand out for me, particularly in the Greek world. So the first is, when I was doing my PhD research on Delphi, on the Sanctuary of Delphi, I lived at Delphi for a little while, and not just at Delphi, the modern town of Delphi. I actually lived in the archaeological dig house that is run by the French excavators, who still, alongside the Greeks, are the principal excavators of the Sanctuary of Delphi, and their dig house is hidden away behind the museum. If you ever go to Delphi, the site, and then on the left-hand side there's the museum, and hidden away behind the trees is a small dig house where those working on the site can live and stay. Now that means that at night time you are pretty much alone, bar other people in the dig house, in that whole cleft of the valley, because everyone is in the town of modern Delphi around the corner. And when I was working there, which was March, April time, it was actually not very busy at the dig house at all. In fact, for a couple of nights, I was the only person there. So I had the entire dig house to myself, and that also meant that I was alone with the site itself. Now, technically, one's not supposed to go into the site at night, but I cannot confirm or deny that there may have been some night wanderings into the Apollo Sanctuary at Delphi by night, lit by the moonlight, and all I can say is that it was pretty much the most petrified I have ever been. Not just because of the wind rattling around the crags of the Parnassian Mountains, not just because of the sheer weight of history and of peoples and of stories that I knew to have happened in that place. Perhaps I knew too much about it. But there's something special about Delphi that I think we all feel when we go there. There's an otherness, an otherworldly quality to it, and that is magnified 20 times at night. And if I've ever felt the presence of another world, it was probably there. The other place, I think, which is very atmospheric and makes you feel like there are spirits around every corner, is the museum at Vergina, where you go to see the tomb, we think, of Philip II of Macedon, father of Alexander the Great, because there you descend down underground into this completely covered over tumulus that they've rebuilt over the top of the graves that they excavated, and then you descend down again into a dimly lit space and suddenly are confronted with the soft light looking at and bringing out the colours of the walls of the tomb of Philip II of Macedon, with beautiful painted colour still fresh looking at you. And you often find yourself quite alone in those spaces, and the soundproofing means that everything is both deadened and echoey at the same time, and there too you wonder whether Philip himself will open the door and emerge out towards you at any moment. So those are the two places for me that kind of really bring that other spooky world to light. So let me know about yours. It wasn't the gas, Anna, that took me, I think, at Delphi so much as it was just sheer weight of history and expectation of things that I knew to have happened in that place, in the place I was standing, underneath my feet, that I couldn't resist seeing the other world all around me. So there we go. And Latifah, you're asking about my favourite ghost story from antiquity. Well, if I may be allowed a slightly light-hearted one, it's very serious, but at the same time has a bit of an eyebrow-raising capacity to it. So this ties in with another question that's come from Claire, which is asking about to what extent, were there ghost stories in antiquity? To what extent did the ancients come into contact with the spirits of the dead? Did they have, in that sense, anything like Halloween? That's a question that's come in from Will as well, age 9. And in some ways, no. So there isn't an equivalent of Halloween per se in the ancient Greek and Roman worlds. Halloween's actually a sort of more of a creation of the post-pagan kind of Christian world moving forward. But they did have lots of ways in which, particularly the ancient Greeks, liked to interact with their dead. And which giving a space for dead spirits to come up from the underworld and re-engage with the living. Now, in some ways, these were quite curtailed and controlled times, because you don't want the dead running amok, and the Greeks were very, very particular about this. You don't want the dead to be able to run amok around your city. So the Athenians, for instance, had a festival each year that was called the Anthesteria, and it's I guess might quote for an equivalent of Halloween, but it happened actually in January time, about the 11th to the 13th of January. And it was a 3-day festival, and it was more to do with the maturation of wine vintages from the previous year that were being opened up, also associated with kind of maturation rites and rituals of young people growing up to the next stage of their lives, but it was also associated with the spirits of the dead. And so on the first day of this 3-day festival, it was sort of acknowledged that the spirits of the dead were welcomed up from the underworld to waltz around the city. And they had free run of the city over the following 3-day festival while the Athenians were doing all sorts of other things. And you had to be quite careful if the dead were running around. So the Athenians would chew certain leaves, or they would smear their doors with tar to keep off evil, because they knew the spirits of the underworld were walking around and kind of there and engaging with them. And then on the 3rd day of the festival, they had a specific ritual where they said, "Thank you very much, spirits of the dead. Been absolutely lovely having you. Really, really enjoyed it. But it's time for you to leave." And there were the ritual callings out saying, "Time for you to go back out of the world of the living and into the world of the dead." So they left a very specific amount of time for these spirits to come up and engage with them and welcome them, and then sent them packing again. And in the midst of this festival, they also did really weird things like marry the wife of the chief magistrate of Athens. She was married to Dionysus, the god of wine, in a sort of secret, slightly dodgy ceremony. It was all a bit weird. So you had the Anthesteria, where the ghosts were welcomed but still feared. And then another place that you could come and get into contact with ghosts in the ancient Greek world in particular was through an oracle. So we think about oracles like the Delphic oracle as a priestess of the living that you went to and you posed your question and they went into a trance. And there were different ways of doing oracular consultations as well. You could read the rustling of leaves at the sanctuary of Dodona up in northern Greece, or you could cut up an animal and read the entrails, particularly of its liver, or you could follow the flight of birds or other animals. But there was also a subcategory of oracle, an oracle of the dead. And these places were very particularly located near what were thought to be access points between the underworld and the world of the living, the world of the above. So one of the most famous was up in Epirus, and it was near the Acheron River, so kind of closely associated with Hades and the underworld. And here was an entry point, and here was an oracle of the dead, so-called in Greek a necromanteon, necros, the dead corpse, manteon meaning oracle, and it kind of goes hand in hand with one of my favourite kind of ghost stories. Hello Linda, welcome, you found us, thank you so much indeed, well done joining in, Fandabi Dorsey, come back and join us. Yes indeed, this is our whole brand new Facebook page and whole brand new kind of Facebook Q&A. Thank you again for finding us, and spread that message far and wide. We are now facebook.com/Prof Michael Scott. Thank you so much. So, what happened at the Necromanteon of Epirus near the River Acheron? Well, you supposedly went through a whole series of days and days of pre-consultation ritual where you fasted and you ate particular, probably psycho-inducing foodstuffs, and then you went into a space where you had to meander through all these crazy like maze paths, so you completely lost your entire sense of everything, and then you were in the darkness, and then the spirit of the dead person you had come to consult came into vision, and you asked your question. Now, you could only go to an oracle of the dead if the dead person that you wanted to speak with had some kind of knowledge. It wasn't that they could tell you about everything, but they could tell you about things that they'd known about in life and secrets they'd taken with them to the grave, for instance. And so we hear in Herodotus, the great historian, the father of history, that a tyrant of Corinth, a guy called Periander, his wife, Melissa, had died. Well, actually, he had killed her by throwing her down some stairs. But she had taken with her the secret of where a really nice amount of very quite nice stuff, kind of family heirlooms, jewels, etc., were hidden. And so he wanted to know where they were. And so on the first instance, he sent his emissaries to this Necromanteon. And they went through the whole pre-rituals, and they were then consulted, and they said, and the spirit of Melissa, his wife, kind of came into being, and she was sitting there all naked in front of them. And they said, excuse me, we'd like to know where these things are. And she said, I'm not going to tell you because I'm cold and hungry. And referring to the fact that she had not, in her view, been given a proper burial. She'd been cremated, and she hadn't been given a proper send-off, proper burial rites, and she hadn't been dressed properly for her burial before she'd been cremated. So she was sitting there in the underworld, very unhappy and without a nice dress. And so she also then gave a message to be passed back to Periander, which was of such a personal nature that Periander realised that it could only possibly have been her and her spirit speaking to Periander. Something that only she could possibly have known. So Periander was absolutely amazed by this and came and then went about sacrificing as many dresses to her as possible. He burned dress after dress after dress. He got every woman from the whole of Corinth, his kind of the area he was a ruler, to donate dresses so that he could then burn them on the altar, so that his wife Melissa in the underworld had as many possible dress options as she could hope for in the underworld. And then she afterwards, in a second consultation, in which he personally came to speak to the dead spirit of his wife, whom of course he had killed by throwing her down the stairs, but we'll pass over that. She willingly, apparently, supposedly, according to Herodotus, gave up the location of the objects that he desired. So I really like that because it's kind of, it feels like the dead, and particularly this dead woman, getting at least one back over on the man who killed her, while still emphasising the crazy way in which the Greeks seemed to think that they could interact with their dead spirits, and particularly even those that they had done harm to, that they had killed, and still kind of get the information to be able to carry on forward with their lives. So that is my favourite story, Latifa. It is that of Periander and Melissa from Herodotus, kind of from the Necromanteon near the Acheron River. Time is flying, and we must stop to have a couple of in the news statements. So you will have seen that Extraordinary Roman Villa is going to be opened, has just been reopened to the public in Herculaneum. So this is the house of the bicentenary. It's been under restoration for about 35 years. It's a 3-storey, 600 square metre domus. It's got frescoes, it's got mosaic floors, and it's kind of, well, it was open to the public, having been discovered in 1938, but it's basically was closed in 1983 because it was falling into disrepair, and they've spent quite a lot of time renovating it and bringing it back. So next time you're in Herculaneum, go and see that. Worcester buses are being named after Roman goddesses. This is absolutely fantastic. I love this. So the Worcester's decided that in order to commemorate the 144 Salt Road bus service, which highlights the routes that the Romans took in ancient times to gather salt moving through this area. And the Salt Road bus service runs between Worcester, Droitwich Spa, Bromsgrove and Birmingham. They are renaming the buses that run along this route, the 12 different buses with the names of Roman goddesses. Absolutely, absolutely love it. Then events, what's going on? So if you are lucky enough to have a ticket to come up to Lytham St Anne's to the Classical Association branch, which I'm very, very proud to be president of, and the fantastic committee there, along with the CA National Committee, have been doing great work in order to get ready for Professor Dame Mary Beard is coming to give her presidential lecture up at the LSA CA branch on the 9th of November. She's giving it twice, 2 p.m. and 4:15. This is a ticketed event only, so if you haven't got your ticket yet, you can try to get a few. Perhaps there's 1 or 2 remaining in a couple of different places, but I would doubt it. But if you are able to come, we really look forward to seeing you there. I'll be there giving the vote of thanks to Mary for both of those speeches, and it would be great to come and to see you and for you to partake in the Lytham St Anne's Classical Association branch. And then if you like that and you can get back again on the 21st of November, then we've got Mr. Herculaneum, or Professor Herculaneum himself, I should say. Professor Andrew Wallace Hadrill is coming up to speak about Pompeii and Herculaneum, life in the back streets. So that's the next Lytham St Anne's Classical Association lecture. So that's absolutely fabulous, and 2 great speakers that you will enjoy hugely. Then on the 16th of November, in between those 2 dates, if you can pop by Vindolanda, you can have the Lighted Up Winter Workshop. Midwinter festivals have been a feature of every culture, and for the Romans it was the Saturnalia. These festivals feature light, fire and incense, so what better way to celebrate this time of year? You can use ancient craft skills, moulds and templates. Graham Taylor, master potter, who I know well, who's helped us out here at Warwick many a time making ancient vases for us, will show us how to make heritage pieces of pottery with a creative twist that will be ready in time for Christmas. So you can get a pot made as a Christmas present alongside the Michael Scott 2020 calendar, and you are set absolutely for Christmas indeed. So that's a workshop, both morning and afternoon sessions on the 16th of November. And then also on the 21st of November, I should say, during the day, if it's not enough to have an evening lecture up at Lytham St Anne's, if you can't get up that far and you can get as far as Warwick, then Warwick Classics Network, we are running an Ancient World Storytelling Day that day. And we have Natalie Haynes coming to talk about midday, followed by a series of lectures by Warwick Classic staff, including myself, and we're talking about different aspects of storytelling in antiquity. Now that is a free event open to the members of the public, so we'd love to see you there. If you would like to come, just Google for the Warwick Classics Network, that's warwick.ac.uk/WCN, and then click through to the booking form for the 21st of November. It'd be great if you could book in advance, please, because then we can know for catering. Natalie Haynes is talking at about 12:30, and then followed up by a great series of talks by people like Professor Alison Cooley, Eric Sharpo, who's just joined, Professor Eric Sharpo has just joined us from Sydney, Australia. He's an expert in ancient drama. Dr. David Fern as well, and myself will be talking. I'll be talking about Heracles, one of my favourite characters from antiquity. So, do hope you can come and join us for that. It would be fabulous on the 21st of November. And then this, I have to mention this. I think this is absolutely genius, and you may have seen this flagged on the Facebook page and also on Twitter. I put it out because Asterix and Obelix is returning to our screens in a new film. It's going to be a live action feature based on the characters of Asterix and Obelix, and it's going to be called Asterix and Obelix: The Silk Roads. So Asterix and Obelix are wandering. They're not just going to Britain this time, they are going to China for the first time in a story. So they are following the ancient Silk Roads that did indeed link the Roman world and the Mediterranean world more widely to China, although it wasn't a place that people would run all the way backwards and forwards themselves. Normally it would be done in stages, and people would move across their stage and then hand the goods on to the next people who would do their stage and their stage and their stage. We don't really know of anyone who made it all the way across themselves, and certainly all the way across and back until several centuries later, after the sort of end of the high point of the Roman Empire. But I think Asterix and Obelix, the Silk Road, sounds fantastic, and they'll be taking their magic potion with them, no doubt, and it'd be great to see what they end up doing in China as a result. So we can't wait for that to hit the cinemas. A couple of last bits and bobs for our Halloween special. Now, many of you were asking about curses. Now, curses are an extremely important part of tons of ancient cultures, and they often involve and draw their power from the dead. What you want to do with a curse is somehow get your text into the underworld. So people used to put them into burials. If there was a fresh burial of someone who had just died, people would sneak along at night and shove the text that was written on some kind of lead or other tablet and then fold it up and often pierce with a nail. They'd shove it in with the body because you wanted to get it down into the world of the dead. And then the dead, that would give it its power to be able to actually have an effect on somebody else in the living world. That's how kind of curses worked. And we have examples from the Mediterranean world of not just cursed tablets, so these things written on lead and other materials folded up with a nail piercing through, but equally cursed voodoo dolls, where dolls have had names of people written on them, and then they're pierced with 13 pins and they're shoved into graves as well. So this is serious stuff. But the curses themselves, there was a particular formula, the magic formula for cursing. So we can all learn how to curse in ancient Greek style right now, so that we are well prepared for anything that comes to us. And the key formula is the word or the verb in Greek, I bind. Right? That's the magic word you have to use. I bind so-and-so to do this. Right? And you're calling on the gods, goddesses in the underworld, people like Hecate. Right, so if you can throw Hecate in there as well, you're doing well. And so you would bind a person that you wanted to be forced into doing something or not doing something, and then you would call upon the gods that this would happen, write this up, pierce it with a nail to give it a bit of emphasis, and then shove it in the grave of a newly deceased person, and then hope for the best. Now, areas of life, guesses about areas of life in which curses are most seemingly regularly used in antiquity. Linda says, let's bind those who are going for a general election. Yes, kind of all politicians, well, most politicians, it feels like at the moment you could do well with that. Alexis is taking notes on curses. Your ex better watch out. Yes, indeed. And you hit it spot on, Alexis, because alongside legal battles, right, which seem to be one of the major areas in which curses were used, that people were cursing the other to sort of not be able to bring their case to court. The other main area is in the thorny topic of love, and particularly cursing exes that they don't find happiness with others after they have moved on, but equally binding those that you would very much like to take an interest in you into taking an interest in you. And I read now for you an ancient curse. So it's not so much as a curse as trying to use the power of the dead to get what you want. No, it's not even quite a curse, is it? It's kind of, but it's trying to affect other people's actions by using the power of the dead. And this is what he says, this chap called Theon, about a lady he's interested in called Euphemia. Seize Euphemia and lead her to me. Loving me with mad desire, bind her, there's the key word, bind her with unloosable shackles, strong ones made of adamantine for the love of me. Do not allow her to eat, drink, obtain sleep, jest or laugh, but make her leap out and leave behind her father, mother, brothers, sisters, until she comes to me. Burn her limbs, live female body, until she comes to me and not disobeying me. Well, kind of quite. So you can try that if there's someone you're particularly interested in. And equally, if you want to offer something against an ex, then it's I bind this person not to find love with anyone else, for nothing to work with anyone else, and for them to find no love and respite with anyone else either. But the final category I want to introduce you to, just in our final minutes of kind of the recipients of curses, it appears very much in ancient Greek and Roman antiquity, was tavern keepers. So it seems that pub landlords often found themselves the subject of curses. Now, whether this is because they were chucking people out and stopping them from drinking, or whether it's because they weren't giving them enough drinks for free, or whether it was just a good jest that poor old tavern keepers were the butt of kind of all sorts of kind of curses. Here we go, but here's another one. Real ancient curse. I bind Calais, the shop tavern keeper, who is one of my neighbours, and his wife, Tehitra, and the shop tavern of the bald man, and the shop tavern of Anthemion and Polon, the shop tavern keeper. Of all of these, I bind the soul, the work, the hands, tying in mind. All of these I bind to Hermes, the restrainer, another one of the gods you can call on. So if you get Hecate and Hermes the restrainer in there at the same time, then you're doing well. Now it seems we're not quite sure what from that tablet they wanted them to do or not do, but poor old tavern keepers really seem to get it in the neck. So there we go. Well, you now know how to curse like an ancient Greek and send your best curses in. Just don't, please, 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 go burying them amongst any dead bodies. Apparently it got so bad in ancient Athens with people sort of running around burying curses, and every burial, fresh burial that was happening, the Athenians actually moved to try and outlaw it for a period of time, but it didn't really work because they kept putting them in there. And so my final point I'd like to leave you with is kind of what is it that makes ghosts really unhappy in the ancient Greek and Roman worlds that they got really worked up about, and that was principally not being given their full burial rites to help them move on to their final resting place in the underworld. If they didn't get proper burial rites, if the body had been lost at sea, or if it had been murdered and hidden and thus not given a proper burial, then the ghost, the spirit of the person, could not make their way across through the underworld to the Elysian fields, or the fields of the asphodel, plain of the asphodel, etc., were nice places to go, or indeed even bad places to go, to Tartarus. But kind of the key thing was that they had the burial rituals, and so you hear lots of stories in Greek antiquity of houses being haunted, principally because they're trying to make the living aware that there are perhaps bones that haven't been properly buried somewhere in the house, or the owner of that house didn't get proper burial, and that once they get that proper burial, just as when Melissa got her clothes, they happily sidle off into the sunset. So while the Greeks did fear the dead, and they often wore apotropaic amulets and things to ward off evil, or did things when they knew lots of Greek spirits were around, they also knew that there was often a reason why these Greek spirits and ghosts were plaguing them, and that they needed something done for them, which would then allow them to move on happy as Larry. So there we go. Enjoy your Halloweens this evening. I hope you are pumpkin carving tastic, and I hope as you do so, you give some thought for the spirits of the dead of the ancient Greek world, whether they were popping up to answer questions in oracular consultations, or whether they were popping up to enjoy a festival about town and take over for a couple of days, or whether the living were using the power of the dead to effect what they wanted most, whether that be in love, or whether it be in legal matters, or indeed trying to deal with those pesky pub landlords. So there we go. Fabulous. Thank you so much all for tuning in. Our time is up. Our next time will be back in 2 weeks on the 14th of November, 4 o'clock UK time, normal time, 14th of November. And in the meantime, please, 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 in every way you possibly can, let the world out there know, and our other great community of Facebook followers, that we have sadly lost due to the nasty hacking of our Facebook page, where we are, so that they can rejoin and become part of it again. Facebook.com/Prof Michael Scott. I look forward to seeing you, and in the meantime, remember that calendar is now ready for order on Amazon for Christmas, and I look forward to signing some and sending them to you to hopefully bring you joy through 2020. Take care. Have a lovely rest of the weekend.